Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bicycle Commuting 2.0 Extending Your Season webinar. My name is Kate Meredith. I'm Vice President at Commuter Services. We are so glad that you could join us on this wintry fall day. I don't know if the snow has started, but I think it has some places. You're going to learn a lot of great tips about riding in the months ahead today. Commuter Services is celebrating Fall Bike to Work Week this week. It started yesterday. It's an opportunity for cyclists to challenge themselves by biking to work at least once this week. Sign up on our website at 494corridor.org for a chance to win a cool weather swag bag that is chock full of awesome and useful gear, and as well as a $50 gift card to a bike shop of the winner's choice. A little bit about Commuter Services and the bike resources that we can provide. We have a wealth of bike commuting resources that you can request on our website. We have maps, route planning apps, tips for biking in traffic and riding in the winter. So you're going to get a lot of great guidance on biking in winter weather. We also have a handout that you can request on our website to refer to later that is authored by our presenter today, Doug Shidell. So you can request that at our commute assistance form. If you haven't already, we encourage you to sign up to receive our monthly commuter newsletter. It comes out at the beginning of each month and will keep you updated on the latest on biking, transit, commuter programs, construction, and more. You may also request to be added to the list to receive updates on bike trail construction. There's a lot of bike construction going on the trails, and we keep that updated and we send that out as we receive the updates. So you can sign up to receive those. If you don't follow us on our social media platforms, we welcome you to do so. That's our Facebook and our Twitter addresses. Just a couple of things before we start the presentation. Please submit questions using the Q&A feature. You can submit them throughout the presentation, and we'll wait till the end, and I'll read those to Doug, and you can ask any questions of me as well. We are recording today's presentation. We will send a link out after the presentation. And now I would want to welcome presenter Doug Shidell. Doug has been riding bicycles and writing about them since 1970. His bicycle experience includes touring, racing, commuting, and mountain biking. He has taught classes on biking to work since 2005. Doug publishes the Twin Cities Bike Map. He's written numerous newspaper and magazine articles, and he recently published a novel, well, about bicycling. So congratulations on that accomplishment, Doug. His website is www.bikeeverywhere.com, and his Facebook page is Bike Everywhere. Welcome, Doug.
Thank you. Okay, can everybody see the screen? Is that visible? Okay, thanks, Kate, appreciate the introduction, and thank you everybody for showing up. So what we're going to be talking about is extending the season. There will be some stuff about commuting through the winter weather, but I want to emphasize that there is just a little bit of perspective. Winter is not 6 months of blizzards. It's sometimes just cold, and you can dress for the cold. By the way, Kate, is my video on, or is that, I don't see myself on here. Okay, so between now and sometime in December, there's actually quite a bit of good riding coming up between now and December. You can ride up till Thanksgiving, and you can do it with conditions like this woman is dressed right here. If you look at her, she's pretty much dressed for today's riding. She's got good gloves. They look to be waterproof. Got a nice jacket. Her head is covered with a balaclava. She could probably pull it up over her nose if needed. And she's also got, it looks like long underwear under her jeans, and she's got some pretty warm footwear. This kind of riding, or this kind of dress, will carry her through Thanksgiving, possibly into the middle of December, and it'll pick up again about mid-February. But it won't carry her through the worst of winter. There's she could still ride in the winter, but what she'll need is just to choose her battles. She has to pick her battles. Instead of taking the worst weather, she'll take the best weather in winter and ride through that. So trying to get between now and Thanksgiving, you're going to be doing some bad weather riding. It's not going to be like the middle of summer. So we need to get your bike in shape for that. And one of the primary things you can do is put fenders on your bike. If you take a look at this rider, he's got 2 full fenders, and that's really important, not to keep the rider dry, but to keep mud and grit off the road, from getting up on him. Now, personally, I'd like to see that front fender of his extended down just a little bit, say with a mud flap, and that would keep his feet a little bit drier or a little bit cleaner, and his chain rings a little bit cleaner as well. So we need to go with something a little bit more protective when you're riding in these kinds of conditions. You also need a headlight, tail light, reflectors. It looks like this rider has all of those things. You also need to dress yourself for rain, and that's done in different ways. Now, if you look at the woman in the upper right-hand corner, she's dressed for warmer weather. Those that cape, that poncho she has, will allow a lot of air up underneath and stuff. That's not what you're going to need in winter or even late fall. For those conditions, you need the 2 other people on his photos here. The woman and the man in the lower part both have full rain gear, including pants, and they probably have either their shoes are going to be waterproof, or they're going to change them once they get to their destination. The woman has full fenders. The one with the blue top, she has full fenders, and so that makes it protect her feet a little bit more and her chain and stuff. The man's fenders are not quite as helpful. They're going to keep that stripe off his back, but it looks like they're not going to do much for his feet. So he's somewhat protected, but not quite as well as she is. The other thing that's going to happen in this time of the year is you're probably going to end up riding after dark. So there's just not enough daylight to ride into work, spend 8 hours at work, take your half an hour break, and then come back. So you need to dress for those conditions. And you can see the stealth rider on the left. We've all experienced this person. It's the one who comes zipping out past you in the middle of the road when you didn't expect them to. The person on the right, you're going to see. So that person on the right has a nice reflective vest, got a headlight, probably has a tail light on the bike, and will be visible. And this is really important. And I think these 2 pictures side by side are really telling as far as what happens if you're out riding without a light versus a light. Now, one thing about headlights on a car is that they're intentionally aimed down towards the road. Part of it is to light up the road and see it. Part of it is just to keep from blinding oncoming motorists. So those lower headlights are not going to shine on your helmet. And I've seen people put reflective tape on their helmet, and it probably doesn't do much good just because it's above the headlights. The reflective vest, reflectors on the bike, those are all very good, and especially reflectors on the pedals. The pedal keeps moving, and that attracts attention from the rider. For clothing at this time of the year, and this is pretty much today's weather, you're going to, this is kind of just classic outdoor clothing suggestions. You start with a base layer. Take the person in the lower left corner. He's got something against his skin that's warm. You don't want cotton. Cotton, when it gets wet, just makes you cold. And so what you're looking for is somebody who or some gear like either wool or polypro or something like that that's not going to get cold and clammy against your skin. Then you go to the woman in the upper left and you see that she's got a couple of layers here. The zippered up layer is her mid layer, and that's the one that keeps you warm. So this one, you're going to have the thickness of that or the number of layers of that based on just how cold it is outside. Then she's got an unzippered coat that comes over, or a jacket that comes over the top. That's a wind protection. If you look on the rider on the right, he's got full rain gear in that location. And it's dependent there. What you're trying to do is keep wind and rain off your body. The heat comes from the mid layer and the comfort comes from the first layer. So this will get you through, again, probably through Thanksgiving, maybe the middle of December, and it'll again get you through from mid-February on. But it won't do anything in the middle of the winter. That requires different clothing. But before we get to that, I want to emphasize the importance actually of bailing out. If the conditions are just too bad, get out of them. You know, take transit, arrange a ride home, get a ride sharing app on your phone, something like that. Because if you try to ride through the winter, you might do it, but you could also burn out. And so that means then that maybe by spring, you've kind of patted yourself on the back and said, I made it through all of winter. I need a break. The break goes on for 5 years. We're trying to keep comfortable and pleasant and enjoyable. And sometimes that means bailing out. Get out of the worst conditions and get into another form of transportation. Right now, bailing out does have some extra precautions. COVID-19 is still with us and it's not going away soon. So take those precautions, wear a mask, crack open a window so that you got some air flowing through your vehicle. And then of course, wash your hands when you get home. And then the usual other precautions. These are just things that we have to do this year, and hopefully we'll have a vaccine. We won't have as much problems with that in the future. Now we're moving into deep winter. Again, you don't have to do this. Let's just go through it and give you an idea, if you choose to do it, how to handle this stuff. We're going to start with the basics. Again, you're going to cover all exposed skin. You need to do this, and it's going to be especially important because when you're riding a bike, you're creating a wind, and that wind will find any gaps in your clothing. So you need to cover everything up. Layer for warmth and flexibility. Remember that when you leave for work in the morning, you're going to have one temperature, and you could have a temperature that's 10 or 15 degrees different when you leave work in the evening and head home. So you need to have these layers that you can take on or off, open up, close up, that kind of thing. The primary concern here is that you want to keep your fingers and toes warm. They're going to get cold first. And then also cover your face, cover your ears, that kind of stuff, because wind chill when you're riding can be a real problem. One of the problems that people make when they're trying to do winter or prepare for winter riding is that they tend to pack too many layers of socks into their boots or too many layers in their gloves and stuff. What that does is it cuts off circulation. And then no matter how much insulation you have, your feet and hands are going to get cold. You have to leave room for circulation, and we'll get into that in a couple of slides here. Let's get into specific parts of the body and keeping them warm. The main thing is, of course, the trunk of your body. You need to keep that warm. We've gone through that. You need to have that base layer, the middle layer for warmth, and then a top layer to keep yourself from being too, from the wind and rain, snow, that kind of stuff. There's a lot of different gear on here. This is just kind of giving a feeling for what the choices are. But one of the things to keep in mind is that you can actually be sweating because your body is overdressed while your hands and toes are freezing. So your body just generates a lot of heat. That heart is pumping hard. There's a lot of blood flowing through it. So be careful about overheating. You want to, it sounds ironic, but you actually don't want to get too hot while you're riding. So make sure you balance off the amount of clothing you have around your body, against what you're going to have on your hands and feet. And of course, make it reflective if you can. With hands, the primary concerns are, there are two real concerns here. One is that you need to keep your fingers warm, and the other is you have to have your wrist covered. So if you look at the two different photos here, the one is called, in the upper right, that's bar mitts or pogies, they're called, a number of other brand names to them. But the idea is that they just stay with the bike. They're actually attached to your handlebars, and you slip your hands in. These things are very warm. I've heard people complain that when the temperature is 15 or 20 degrees outside, their hands are sweating. So this is an incredibly warm thing. They also come deep. They come up over your wrists and up to your forearms, and that makes a big difference in your comfort. Same with the other photo, the rider with the heavy mitts on. Notice how those mitts come up almost to his elbows. You don't have to get that far, but you definitely have to get past the wrist, because it's almost impossible to put enough or to really tuck in your wrist and stuff on a small glove. What you'll get is a small little exposed piece of skin, and as you're riding, that thing just gets freezing cold and very uncomfortable. Again, layers, like multiple layers of mitts can make a difference, because then you can take one off if it's warm, or you can add an extra one on if it's cold. And then make sure that you keep room for circulation. Your fingers will get cold if you don't have proper circulation. And of course, you're going to have trouble shifting your bike when you've got these kinds of big mitts on. Practice with that just to make sure that you can handle that properly, and especially braking. Let's look at the feet. And in this case, let's get rid of those really efficient pedals with the cleats on them and all that stuff. What you want is flat platforms, and then you can wear your biggest, heaviest boots. Those boots will allow you to walk if you need to get off the bike, either in the snow conditions, or you just need to move your feet a little bit and warm them up. If you plan to wear multiple layers of socks, then get a pair of boots that are a couple of sizes larger than normal. Because if you put those big socks into your normal boots, you're simply going to be too tight, and you're not going to be able to, your feet aren't going to get the circulation they need, your toes are going to get cold. Both with the hands and feet, you can supplement them both with chemical warmers. And these things are not only important for riding. Even if you can keep your hands generally warm, sometimes you may have to stop for a reason, like a mechanical problem or something. And if you have to pull your hand out and do something, it's nice to be able to put it back into that glove and have something warm, like a chemical hand warmer, to warm them up again. So keep those around. Some people will use them for everyday use. Other people will just use them for emergencies. And as far as placement goes, get it up towards the front. Your toes are going to get cold faster than the rest of your foot. When it comes to the head, your primary concern really is just keeping the wind off your face and stuff. You don't want to get frostbite on your cheeks. You don't want your eyeballs to get too cold, or get a lot of on your eyelashes have frost and stuff gathering. So this woman is pretty well dressed. She's got ski goggles. She's got a nice heavy, that North 45 is a big wool thing that will get down, tuck into her coat, keep the wind off her neck, and protect her cheeks and stuff right up to where the goggles are. She obviously should have a helmet on when she's riding, and the helmet should be adjusted so that that extra layer that she has on there to keep her head warm isn't going to make the helmet too tight. Now, the problem with this arrangement comes if you have glasses. Eyeglasses just tend to fog up under goggles, and there's not much anybody has learned how to do as far as designing the right equipment for it. So you have to try some of your own techniques. One of the primary ones is don't let your head get sweaty. You want it warm, but if it starts sweating, then that generates a lot of moisture. The moisture condenses on your glasses, and then you can't see. So try to keep your head a little bit cool. You can do that by venting. I oftentimes will take my goggles and just lift them up off my face when I get to a stop sign, and then that allows all that moisture to get out. There is a downside to that, because if there is moisture and it's already condensed on your glasses, you pull the goggles off and that moisture freezes up, and then you have a problem with it. It's glasses are a difficult situation in winter under goggles. Now, one of the most depressing things that you can do is get off a long day of work and find out that all your clothes are still clammy from the bike ride in. You just are not going to enjoy that ride home if you have to deal with that. So you need to do a few things before the end of the day. The first one is before you even get indoors, when you first get to work at the beginning of your shift, open up the zippers on your coat. Like I said, your body can be overheated even if your hands are cold. Pull off your headgear and gloves. Let your head air a little bit. Remove one of the big coats, especially remove the windbreaker, because you want to get some of that moisture off your body even before you get indoors. And you definitely don't want to get indoors while you're still hot and start creating more heat and more sweat, because that's more stuff that you have to dry off before you leave. Once you get in, you get to the locker room or wherever you're going to keep your clothes, turn them inside out, get that inside of your body of the shelf to dry out, reverse your gloves and mittens if possible, or pull the inner liner out, and then hang your clothes outside your locker. The one thing about lockers is they simply don't breathe. There's no way to get that moisture out of them. So I strongly recommend hanging outside the locker if at all possible. If you can't, and if you expect to have cooler or damp clothing when you're getting ready to go home, then bring a spare skin layer. Bring something that can lay against your skin that's dry and warm instead of cold and clammy. It's just going to make your ride home so much more comfortable. All right, so we got your body set up. Now what about the bike? What are we going to do with that? There's several different options on that, and we'll just kind of work our way through them. Let's start with the fat bikes. These things have pretty much taken over winter riding. They are the bike of choice for people who are doing recreational riding, commuter riding, and it's just because they're designed for it. Those big fat tires will float across deep snow. They've got decent traction on ice, not perfect, but it's better than the thin tired bikes. And of course, if they have studs, then they're bomb-proof. And riders just seem to be happy when they're riding these things. It seems like they just really enjoy them. The downside, they are spendy. You're gonna have to spend a fair amount of money to get them. They're heavier and they have a lot of rolling resistance. Most people can accept all of that because of the advantages, but you should at least be aware of those downsides. An alternative is what has often been referred to as the winter beater. The whole point of this is that snow, grit, road salt, all of that stuff really takes a toll on your bike. It can, it'll gunk up your chain, it'll rust your derailleur, it'll get into the hubs of your bike, that kind of stuff. So, one option is to just basically you pull a bike out of a dumpster, get it set up for yourself, ride it through the winter, and then put it back in the dumpster when you're done. This is the concept of the winter beater. It's just not a bike that you need to take care of, except to make sure that you can still get back and forth to work. But because it's cheap, because it's got inexpensive components on it, you don't have to worry about maintaining it quite as much as the other bikes. These tires will be narrower, so you probably need studded tires on them in order to keep your traction. And then the other piece is, as this bike, you can see there's no derailleur on it. It's a very simple system. Single speeds are not universally popular. Some people like them a lot. Other people won't ride them at all. But I'm just showing this as an example of like the winter beater that's really simple and can handle a lot of weather conditions. Once you have your bike, you can make yourself more comfortable and carry your gear better if you equip it. And again, the fenders, the one thing to be careful with fenders now in the winter is that snow can get up in there, and if the fender is too close to the tire, it's simply going to rub, and you're going to get really bogged down. So you need some space there so that the snow can get shed as you're riding. Then it's the other stuff. It's the waterproof panniers or backpack. It's headlights, taillights, and again, studded tires for winter riding. So set up the bike with these kinds of things and you can protect yourself from the road grit. You can protect your bike. If you look at this bike, it's actually got an enclosed chain. So that chain isn't going to get all crudded up and rusty. You can go pretty far with this kind of an arrangement. It just depends on, what you want to do as far as making your bike work better for you. So we've got the bike set up and we've got your clothing set up. Now we need to just talk a little bit about technique. When you're riding in the summer, when you're riding 3 seasons of the year, you basically have solid pavement to work on, to ride on, generally not very slippery and pretty easy to maneuver. When you get into winter, deep winter, you start dealing with some other stuff. So black ice is probably one of the hardest ones to handle because it's almost invisible. It almost always shows up right at intersections. And the reason it shows up there is because cars stop at those intersections, and that idling, as they idle, the hot air from the exhaust drops down and lands on the pavement, freezes up, and creates this really slick black ice that's very difficult to see. So you have to deal with this by anticipating black ice more than seeing it. You need to slow down before you get to the intersections and take a foot off the pedal. That gives you just a chance to put your foot down if your tire slips out. If you're going to be riding across the ice, you need to ride through in a straight line, and that keeps you from slipping. You don't want to brake. You don't want to make any sudden moves because your wheel could go out on you very quickly. Keep feet out for stability. And of course, if you start soon enough with slowing down, then you are not concerned about getting into an intersection. You don't want to come into that intersection riding quickly and then suddenly have to stop because there's a car crossing. So a lot of this is anticipation and being ready for the worst conditions. And of course, here again, studded tires really make a big difference. New snow is actually kind of fun. When you ride in new snow, there's some extra drag from it. It can get caught up on your fenders, that sort of thing. But basically, it's not bad to ride in, unless you're riding on a road that's already got car tracks on it. Those car tracks can take, they create ruts and they can take you and throw you around a little bit. Whenever I have to ride in these conditions, I tend to try to get way over to the side where the cars haven't driven because it's the easiest. But if you have to stay on those tracks, then stay in the middle. And I'm talking here about wide handlebars giving you a little more leverage in case the bike is starting to get thrown around. That's what that helps, like the wide mountain bike handlebars can help in those conditions. Another condition is this packed ice. This is, now you can see slick ice in the middle of the road, but you also see this ridge of other ice. A plow obviously came through here. But what I find in Minnesota roads is often chunks of ice, and you see this ice that's right in the front of the picture. It's an older ice. It's got a lot of grit and sand in it. That kind of ice is difficult to ride across because it bounces you around and it jerks you around a little bit, but it's not slick. It's actually fairly, it's got good traction, and that's because of all the dirt and the ice or the salt and stuff that's in the middle of it. A bigger bike will handle these better. A bigger tired bike will handle these better just because it absorbs some of the road shock and absorbs some of the unevenness of the stuff. But it is better than slick black ice in that it's not going to be slippery. So what if you have a problem on your bike while you're riding? This can actually get serious. If you are out there and you're trying to do some problems on the bike and your hands start getting cold, the wind is blowing, your body is cooling down, this simple mechanical issue can turn into a serious issue that can threaten you and make you very uncomfortable. So before you start, the first thing to assess is, first off, can I just get out of the traffic and get out of the wind? Because both those things make you feel a little bit more comfortable and take away some of the challenge. So wind can really cool you down fast. Next thing to do is put on an extra layer of clothing. That is important because your body has now stopped moving, and so you're cooling down. So the extra layer of clothing, and of course, hand warmers, foot warmers, anything like that can just make you more comfortable. But then before you start working on the bike, really assess the problem, because you're going to have to probably fix it in cold weather, possibly dark conditions, and maybe even snow or something like that. If you can't do that, just arrange for an alternate thing to happen. So find a ride, call somebody, and then set up a meeting place that's someplace warm if possible, you know, a convenience store, a gas station, something like that. But at the minimum, you want to meet someplace where you can load the bike up and not be out in traffic or in the wind. So you're trying to make yourself comfortable. If you can work on the bike and under these circumstances, by all means do it, get back on the road and ride home. But don't overdo it. Don't overestimate your ability to take care of this. Getting a ride, getting some other way of getting home really can be the best alternative for you. There are other emergencies such as accidents, and you need to, you know, fix tires and that. All of this stuff requires, first off, having the gear on hand, but second, having a, you know, a hand warmer, an extra layer of clothing. Make sure your cell phone, as you've been riding, put your cell phone in someplace close to your body so that it stays warm and the battery keeps working, because that can be a lifesaver to have a useful cell phone. Now, sorry about this picture. We just simply couldn't find a cool weather picture to show. But if you have an accident and it's cold weather, you know, there are a couple of things to do. First off, of course, if you can't move, there's nothing you can do. You have to be careful that you don't aggravate your injuries. But if you can move, get out of the traffic and get out of the wind as quickly as possible. Put on those extra layers, start a chemical hand warmer, and call 911. Now, you may think that, well, this isn't a big deal. It's a fairly minor injury. But minor injuries can become serious injuries if your body temperature drops. You start losing your ability to speak, to think clearly, to move your fingers, that kind of stuff. So be cautious and go for the most cautious approach in order to make sure you're safe. If there's another vehicle involved and you have to deal with insurance and reporting the accident and stuff like that, just set that aside until you're comfortable, that you make sure that you're not going to get too cold and that your injuries are okay. You can take care of all of that stuff you need to at some point, but you can't take care of it if you're getting too cold. So make sure you take care of the other issues first. All right, so I went really deep into winter. We got into really deep clothing and cold, snow, that kind of stuff. Let's back off a second, get back to that perspective. You don't have to ride in all those conditions. You can ride from now until Thanksgiving, possibly middle of December, in fairly dry conditions, and you can dress without being extreme for these conditions. You can take a break, and that's not a bad thing, and you can come back again in February. But even if you want to ride, you know, if you pick your battles right, you'll get a week of riding in December, you'll get almost a week of riding in January, and February just starts getting better. So keep in mind that you can extend your season without having to go through the deepest part of winter and the most hazardous part of winter. And you'll be far better off if you do it that way. So Kate is going to be reading some questions and I'll try to answer them. But before that, right now, I also want to just put up her contact information so that you can get that information down in case you want to follow up later. Kate, do you have some questions?
Thank you so much, Doug. We really appreciate the wealth of information and, you know, how to handle different situations, even if they get, you know, to an accident. We certainly didn't want to scare anyone, but we want to make sure that you have, you know, really good information for any situation. So we really appreciate the presentation. I am not seeing questions in the Q&A, but we can wait just a bit if anyone wants to type in a question. Again, we have lots of resources through Commuter Services to help you bike to work throughout the year, including for winter riding. We have a handout that we can mail you. We have bike maps and safety tips and tips in riding and traffic and route planning. So you can go to our website for that.
I do see a question.
Yeah, do you have a question?
Any tips for someone who is trying to bike commute in the winter for the first time, like taking a practice run? I think the best thing here is pick your battles. Don't try to ride in the worst conditions. There are some days in winter that are really quite pleasant, and I would start with those. The other thing is make sure you ride through the fall, because that starts taking care of some of the issues you're going to deal with. So cold, as the weather gets colder, you'll start adjusting your clothing more. You'll start getting better, get that better dialed in, how you're going to deal with it when you get to work, how to keep it dry, that kind of stuff. So do that kind of stuff. There's really no way except to just get out there and do it. But maybe your best bet there is to, as you say, do a practice run. You get some winter weather, get out and do it as a recreational ride, or on the weekend, go and ride to work and back just to see how it feels. So you can do some stuff like that. I think, yeah, a practice run is really good and worth doing. Great comment here from Jennifer. She says, AAA will pick up you and your bike if you break down, if you're a member. And also Hennepin County has a pilot program. Do you know anything about that, Kate?
Yeah, we could send some information out. I've heard of that. I think you do have to be a member, but they do support you, or they'll pick you up if you need it. So we can send that information out when we send the link to the webinar. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for pointing that out.
For Andrew, thoughts on velomobiles for winter? I think what you're talking about is the pedal bikes that are enclosed. I don't have a lot of experience with those. The only thing I would say is if it's a three-wheeler, it's definitely going to be more stable than a two-wheeled bike, and there's a lot of advantage to that. The bike would have to be high enough to clear snow if you have to deal with that. And I simply can't address, because I don't have any experience with it. Are you going to have problems like if it's enclosed, does it fog up, things like that? Some of that would just have to be tested. I think, again, try it through the fall and then take a practice run as suggested by Michelle earlier. Take a practice run, see what it feels like to ride it in various kinds of winter weather when you can do it without you can do it without that pressure of I have to get to work or I have to get back from work afterwards. So take it out on the weekend and give it a try, see what you feel like after doing that.
Do you see that other?
Okay, David's question is about clothing for winter riding. There's a couple of things around that. The biking shorts and the padding, those are really comfortable if you're on the bike for a long time. And so let's say, in fact, in the winter, you're probably going to have a longer commute than you do in the fall because of other conditions. So that padding can be really important. I've definitely used biking shorts with padding and then put winter clothing over the top of that. Sometimes that gets a little bit bulky. Men particularly have to be careful. They should have some kind of windscreen in the front just to keep themselves comfortable. But there's also layers of clothing that you need to put on. I don't have specific clothing. I have used things like sorry, spaced it out. There's various clothing that you can layer over. Again, it's really a matter of finding out what's comfortable for you. I would guess that, again, do a practice run, in various conditions and see what it feels like, and try to imitate your ride, which means the length of time that you're out on the ride, the time of day that you're riding, that kind of stuff. I'm sorry I don't have any specific recommendations, but that you can get from your bike shop.
And Doug, there's a question in chat. Any
Okay.
recommendations on fat bike sizing? I've heard you should go down one size for winter riding.
You know, I see the point on that. If you if you go a little bit shorter bike, it's done oftentimes in mountain biking as well. What it does is it brings your center of gravity a little lower, but it also gives you a little bit more flexibility on how high your seat is, and you can feel a little bit tighter with the bike. I don't know exactly how to explain that, but basically you're not as you don't feel as up there, and your bike will feel a little more stable under you as you're riding. Be careful, because the lower you get your saddle and the smaller you get the bike, the more your your knees bend, and so you become a little less efficient about pedaling. That's not an issue if you're going 3 or 4 miles, but it becomes an issue if you're on the bike for an hour or so. So yeah, I could see a smaller bike. If you do get the smaller bike, make sure you've got a long enough seat post on there so that you can adjust it to the height that you want, that you feel most comfortable with.
Great, thanks, Doug.
Okay.
Any other questions? We have time.
Oops.
So Doug, one question, how long have you been biking to work when you started to extend your season and when you started biking in the winter? Gary.
I think I started biking in winter around the 5th or 6th year that I was riding. I definitely did not do it right away, the first couple of years of commuting. I think that those first couple of years, the first year, you're really just trying to get it dialed in as far as basics about commuting. And then in the future years, I was extending it because I wanted to go further and further. And so that's where I started riding later into the fall. I started riding a little earlier in the spring. And I remember the first time I started riding when I actually saw snow on the ground. And that was a big step for me. Then gradually, you kind of, like you go out and you try it in the winter time and see how it works. And so it's a slow step. It's a process. I don't really recommend people going out the first year and commuting in the winter. I think that's just a little bit too ambitious.
Right. I think we say that as well. We, as you said many times, we want people to have a good experience and to be able to bike commute into the future. So
I have one more comment.
yeah.
And this is a route question. What's the safest and most efficient route? Boy, it's always a challenge. I might be pronouncing your name wrong, but Joelle, if you contact Kate and give her a start and end point, I will see if I can work out something for you as a route. I've got quite a bit of experience doing bike route planning, and so I might be able to do a specific route for you and at least let you try it out, see if it works. So get in touch with Kate and I'll follow up with her.
Thanks, Doug. And just a note too that we do send out a list of apps that we recommend for route planning as well. But great if you could recommend something.
Sure. We have, okay, you're welcome.
And then we have a comment in chat from Jennifer. Foxwear.net custom makes winter riding pants. They are about 120 but last for years and for all sorts of winter outdoor activities. Mine are 12 years old and are still great.
That's great news. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. Let's see. Gonna check again at questions.
Okay. I think
Lots of great questions.
just a reminder, if you contact Kate and you have questions after the presentation, you wish you had asked them, or if something comes up later on, please feel free to contact Kate, and she'll contact me, and we'll see if we can get you an answer to your questions. So if you leave here and think of something later, don't worry about it. We'll try to answer that question for you.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, just gonna check. Okay, well, thank you so much, everyone, for attending. We're gonna be done a little early. Very glad that you could be here today. And again, we are recording, so we will send out the link to that. We're gonna post it on our YouTube page, and we will send that out to attendees. So have a wonderful day. Enjoy the week. We hope that if it works, you can bike to work this week, and you can sign up for our goodie bag, our swag bag. All right. Have a great day. Thanks again.